Thanks for coming. I woke up today and I thought, what a beautiful day to be inside all day talking about journalism. What a bunch of nerds. As I stand up here, I ask the question I always ask when I'm in Romania: are there any men in Romania? Except for the soccer game, everywhere I go, 90% women. Not complaining. I shouldn't be doing this. I'm going to start with a magic trick. I've been debating this for a while. The other day I spoke at UniCredit, the bank, and lovely sponsors. Where's Anka? And I didn't do the trick. I was going to do the trick and I chickened out. I was like, no, I'm going to screw it up. And then I did it after for a small group of people, and I did it. And I was like, you should be brave. You can do these things. So I'm going to try to do this trick. I'm going to screw up this trick. Selene, the one person clapping. Thank you, Selene. So this is a card trick. I need someone. We don't know each other, right? I didn't plant you in the audience. Okay. Come on. I was up all night. If I have a little jet lag, blaming jet lag, I've been here like 3 months. I'm tired, so I'm practicing. There's no, right? Wasn't you great? Great. Shuffle a bit. This isn't going to work. It's something like, this is the first time I've tried to do magic in front of like anyone other than 3 people. Or a mirror. Okay. Most people see the card. Are you wearing perfume? You guys be quiet, I'm concentrating. Okay. This one. Are you sure this isn't it? Magic sucks. Played out much differently in my head last night. I was like, it'll be amazing. Magic is a beautiful speech. Who was here last year? So many people. Okay, so I can't do my speech from last year. I'm going to have to talk about magic. This is great. Is this microphone working? This is going so well. Having such a good time. Don't trust me to, there we go. I was going to say, don't trust me to do anything today. I should also say before I begin that this is the first time in my life I pretended to be an American while I'm abroad. I understand Canadians are taking all your gold, or something's happening, yes. Not responsible. All right, let's forget that all just happened. We're going to start again. I became obsessed with magic last year when I was doing a story about a magician named Teller. So these are American magicians. They're a group, Penn and Teller. I don't know if you know them. Penn is a very large man. Teller is very small. He never talks. And I did a story because one of Teller's best tricks got stolen by a Dutch magician. European, they steal everything. Let me kind of explain the story. So Teller has this trick called shadows. It's an amazing trick. He has done it thousands of times. I don't think he's ever screwed it up, like I just screwed up that trick. Basically, Teller, he walks up on stage. There's a light shining on a rose that's sitting in a vase on a stool, and the rose's shadow is on the wall. And Teller has a big knife, and he cuts the shadow, and a leaf of the rose falls off. And he cuts it again, and another leaf falls off. And gradually he cuts it up so the rose is just a stem. And then he pretends to cut himself accidentally with his knife. And on the screen where the shadow was, this trickle of blood starts coming down. And Teller smears it. Now that sounds like as I describe it, I'm not doing justice to this trick. This is an amazing trick. And when you watch Teller perform this trick in an audience in a dark theater, the first time I saw it, I was trying to figure it out. How did he do that? The second and third and fourth time I saw it, I just started watching it, just letting myself go into the magic. And the theater goes silent when he's doing this trick. And in the dark, you can hear people crying. It's amazing. You're just sitting there and you'll hear a sob back here and a sob back here. And all Teller's doing is this magic trick. Now, writers, we never get to see our audiences. I imagine that trick going well. I imagine that people are reading my stories and laughing or crying or whatever I want them to be doing. But Teller can hear it. Teller can see his audience and see what he does. And doing that story made me want to be a magician. That dream has died today here in Romania. It just made me want to do something as special as shadows. So I studied magic. And Teller told me something that I've never really forgotten. I said this at the bank the other day. It's my favorite quote that I've ever gotten from an interview. He said, "Sometimes magic is just someone spending more time on something than anyone else might reasonably expect." And I was like, that's such a great, because Teller spends years on a trick. The shadows he's done since he was 18. Like, he has spent years perfecting these tricks. And that's how you get the payoff. These things take time. To get great at these things, they take time. And we think it's magic. You see someone do something amazing, and you think it's magic. But really, it's the product of hard work and study and all these important things. So I studied magic, and luckily Penn and Teller, part of their shtick as magicians, I did this last year all the time. I was like, what's the Romanian word for it? And it was always the same. Shtick? Yes? No, that's not the same. Cheese is also not the same. These are the things I've learned this trip. Luckily, Teller and Penn explain their tricks a lot of the time as they're doing their tricks, which makes them even more impressive because they're telling you what they're doing, and you still can't see what they're doing. I'm going to show a quick clip. This is their 7 principles of magic. You'll have to watch very carefully as they do this, okay? The way today's going, this isn't going to work, but let me try.
Know what I'm talking about? Looks simple, doesn't it? But when you're dealing with a master of sleight of hand, like my partner Teller, even the simplest activity may be a complex deception. Let's watch that routine again. Is he really crushing out a cigarette? Is he really adjusting his hat? Is he really pulling out a fresh cigarette? Is he really bothered by that itch in his left eye? Is he really just lighting a cigarette? To understand the complexity of Teller's life, you need to know the 7 basic principles of magic. 1, Paul, to hold an object in an apparently empty hand. 2, ditch, to secretly dispose of an unneeded object. 3, steal, the opposite of ditch, to secretly obtain a needed object. 4, load, to secretly move the needed object to where it's needed. 5, simulation, to give the impression that something that hasn't happened has. 6, misdirection, to lead attention away from a secret move. And 7, switch, to secretly exchange one object for another. Teller needs nothing but a pencil, 1 lit cigarette, and a flashlight. Let's watch that original routine again, but this time from the other side. He palms the cigarette. He simulates crushing it out. He steals the palmed lit cigarette and ditches the lit cigarette in his ear. He exhales smoke to misdirect from the smoke coming out from around his hat. He steals the pencil. He simulates taking the pencil, which is simulating a cigarette, from the non-existent cigarette pack and puts simulated cigarette in his mouth. He rubs his eye to misdirect as he loads the burning cigarette from his ear. He simulates a lighter with a flashlight, switches the lit cigarette for the unlit pencil under cover of misdirection from the flashlight. Palm, simulation, steal, ditch, misdirection, steal, simulation, misdirection, load, simulation, switch, misdirection. Looks simple, doesn't it?
He's better at this than I am. Now, the reason I showed you that clip is because most stories, most great tricks are stories. And those 7 principles of magic actually really apply. They could be the 7 principles of storytelling. This might be a stretch, but I think I've worked this out. Because I wanted to be a magician so bad, and I'm a writer, I wanted to say I can do all those things. So we're gonna discuss those 7 points. I think this is gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay. 1, palm. So to palm is to hold an object in an apparently empty hand. Good writers do this. We don't give away the whole story at the start of the story. We hide it. This is the difference between news writing and storytelling. This conference is the power of storytelling, right? We're not going to do news writing. That's for somebody else to do. The best stories are about something more than the story itself. There's the idea, like what the story is about. Christy mentioned my soldier story. This story is about how a body gets back from Iraq. But then there's the theme, the larger meaning of the story. And that story about Joey was about war and sacrifice and honor and all those important things. You don't tell your reader what your theme is. You don't say, this story is about this, but it's actually about this. You keep that. You palm it in your hand, and the theme is your little secret. You save it. And your reader probably doesn't expect to be particularly moved by the words on your page. The reader probably goes into your story expecting a story. But if you save it, in magic, that reveal at the end is called the prestige. That's that moment of surprise when I show you the card that Juana picked out of my deck. That came out wrong. In storytelling, that's your ending. And your ending, if you have that, if your stories have a great ending, you do the same effect that your magic trick has. You've palmed this little secret, and at the end you reveal. And hopefully in that moment, you get that little gasp. You get that moment of emotion that you were expecting, or hoping for anyway. 2, ditch. To secretly dispose of an unneeded object. So this comes in your reporting. So the basic structure of a story, you start with your idea, and then you go to work reporting. But you don't want to include every single fact you find in your story. Part of your job as a writer is to decide what's important and what's not important. And you ditch everything that's not important. There are some things the reader doesn't need to know, and there are some things the reader doesn't need to know just yet, and you'll tell them later. If you think about your favorite movies, they probably had some measure of mystery in them. They don't give you all the answers in the first 10 seconds of the movie. And they also, your favorite movies, if you think of them, they probably don't have a lot of extra stuff in them. There's no extraneous information. There's no unnecessary scenes. That's when people talk about something needing to be cut. When you write a story, you want people to read it and not think, oh, there was so much extra I didn't need in that story. What you want to give the reader is everything they need to understand the story, but not everything. There's no quicker way to bore a reader than to tell them every little detail. This is an interesting principle in magic. Children are much harder to fool than adults. You would think it's the opposite. You would think kids are easy to fool. But what happens as we grow up is we learn to take shortcuts. So sleight of hand, we assume that someone has passed something. We've watched that. If anyone makes that motion, they've passed something between their hands. And adults make that assumption. Children don't make that assumption. If they don't see an object go between hands, it's not there. Adults take these shortcuts. And so what you need to do is let them take those shortcuts. And then you can use that to surprise them at the end. Ditch. The other thing we can talk about this later, Tom and I will probably talk about this during our afternoon session, but Teller's tricks are quiet. Do you guys know who David Copperfield is? Wears pirate shirts. Yeah, it talks about. So he does these loud, bombastic tricks, and he's hiding what he's doing because there's smoke and there's bombs and everything going off. Teller doesn't do that. He does these simple, beautiful, quiet tricks. Shadows, he is daring you. He has a knife, a shadow, and a rose. He's saying, watch me do this. Try to figure it out. There's something that makes his tricks more beautiful than a big, loud trick. That quiet, simple beauty. And I think that's a good way to approach your writing. Spare, quiet. Let the words do the work. 3, steal. To secretly obtain a needed object. Now, this is always a tricky subject because journalists sometimes have bad reputations for doing naughty things. But I am totally fine with saying I'm a professional thief. I am a professional thief. I like to think I'm the guy in Die Hard. You remember? I'm an exceptional thief, that line, which is a great line. I steal lots of things. So the first thing I do is steal my idea. If I sat in a room by myself, no ideas would come to me. You go out into the world, you read newspapers, you see that little 400-word story that the newspaper writer didn't have enough time to do properly, you can make that into a magazine story. You overhear a conversation in a restaurant about something interesting. You talk to a fellow journalist and you hear their idea and you think, oh, that's a good idea, and you run back to Canada and do it. You've stolen those ideas from something in the world. And then the second part of your thieving is the facts. When I'm talking to someone for a story, it's a conversation. We're just having a chat. And your job is to make, in some ways, that person forget who they are and forget who you are, and you're just two people talking. But the truth is, the whole time, I'm stealing from them. I'm taking facts, I'm taking information, and I'm stealing it away, and then I'm going to run home, and I'm going to tell that secret to as many people as I possibly can. That's what I do. So stealing is actually a big part of this profession. Stealing's not a very nice word. We call it reporting. We call it creativity. We're thieves. Steal, number 3. 4, load. To secretly move a needed object to where it is hidden. This is a bit trickier for writing, but now we get into the writing process. We've got our idea. It's a great idea. We've done our reporting. We've stolen everything we need. We've ditched everything we don't need. Loading to secretly move where it's hidden. This is when we talk about a story's structure. So the best stories, you don't just relay facts in some basic order. This happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. Really boring way to tell a story. Loading is the way we order things in the story again so we get that reveal at the end. There is a way to present your information that will get people to where you want to go. Now structure is probably the hardest thing to explain and teach. But when you think about a news story, often we're told you get that punchy lead at the top, you grab people, you give all the information because they're going to stop reading at some point. With a story, like a storytelling story, it's a different process. The lead is to get them in, but everything has to service that ending that you're trying to get to. And there is some perfect way to structure a story that makes that ending possible. You do not have to write like this. Everyone has a different process. But I always write my ending first. I always figure out where I'm trying to get. And then once I have that ending, I go back and work my story toward that place. 5, simulation, to give the impression that something that hasn't happened has happened. This is the secret to every great story. They make the reader see something that they did not see. They make the reader feel something that they were not part of. They make them feel as though they were in the room, that they heard this person talking, that they were at that protest against Canada. Great stories make the impossible possible. What you want to do is you're not telling a reader what to think, you're not telling them what to do. You're telling a story in such a way that they feel like they're there, that they feel like they helped carry Joey Montgomery home, or they were in space. I mean, that's an amazing thing. Most of us will never get to space, but if you write a story properly, if you do a story well enough, if you go see the movie Gravity, amazing, you'll feel like you've been to space. That's impossible. That's an amazing thing, to take someone out of their chair in their living room and make them feel like they've traveled in space. Simulation. Misdirection, number 6, to lead attention away from a secret move. So for writers, for all writers, all of your moves should be secret. Everything we're talking about now shouldn't be on the page. It shouldn't read like work or like effort. Sometimes writers are tempted to try to sound smart, to make the reader understand, I'm a really smart person and I'm very good at my job and you need to understand this. This is important. Those stories suck. Romanian for suck? Oh, it's the same. Okay, that is the same. Perfect. See, they're all the same except for cheese and shtick. That's something that Teller taught me. Something that Teller taught me about this trick, shadows. The method of shadows, how he does the trick, doesn't matter. When he talked about this lawsuit, suing this Dutch magician who had stolen shadows, he wasn't worried that the magician had figured out how he did the trick, because the method isn't important. What matters to Teller is the effect of that trick. What matters to Teller is that moment in the darkened theater when he hears people sobbing. That's the value of the trick, and that's the value of your story. You just have to accept the fact that a great story, the readers will not go, wow, that story was a lot of work. Did you see all the people he talked to? Wow, that story was 10,000 words. He must have written that and edited that. And your reader will not think that, hopefully. Hopefully your reader just gets lost in your story. And it's easy for them to read. They get from the beginning to the end. You've given them no reason to stop reading. And they get to that reveal, and they finish, and it just was an experience for them. They weren't thinking. They were just reading. Misdirection. You're taking someone and putting them someplace they've never been and might never go to in their lives, except in their imaginations because of your story. And 7, switch, to secretly exchange one object for another. This is switching the idea for the theme. Remember I said the story is about something, but it's really about something else. And this turn, this reveal, has to be subtle. It has to be tasteful. It also has to be a secret. You don't say, this is what I'm actually talking about. I know the story's about this, but I'm actually talking, now I want you to feel homesick. You're not explaining it that way. That transition and reveal shouldn't require some giant leap in logic either. When you think of a joke, most jokes are stories. And the ending of a joke is surprising, makes you laugh, but it usually makes sense. Why'd the chicken cross the road? The answer can't be pants. The answer has to make some kind of sense. The same with a magic trick. A great magic trick, the ending makes perfect sense. A great story, the ending is surprising. It excites the reader, it makes them feel something, but it also seems inevitable. You know the movie The Sixth Sense? Yes? So The Sixth Sense, that ending, and the first time you see that ending, you're like, wait a minute. That can't have happened. And then you go back and you watch the whole movie, and you're like, I can't believe I didn't see that. It's inevitable. It's perfectly logical, but it's also totally surprising. Those are the great endings. Those are the things that you carry with you for a long time. That movie came out, what, 96, something like that, a long time ago. You were all 3 years old. But you remember that ending. You carry that with you. It's an amazing power of story. And the other thing you should do here with that ending, with that theme, is trust the reader. Readers are pretty smart. They've spent 6,000 words with you. They'll get what you're doing. And when they close your story, and it might not be right away, but maybe hours or even days later, they will feel homesick. And they won't even know why, maybe. They'll appreciate where their coffee comes from all of a sudden. They'll call an old friend for no particular reason. Maybe they hold the door open for somebody. Maybe they look at the stars and wonder for a second instead of just looking at the stars. After the best stories, I think, they love someone or something maybe just a little bit more. You've given them something like that. So those are the 7 principles of magic, and I think they're the 7 principles of storytelling: palm, ditch, steal, load, simulation, misdirection, switch. I'm now going to show you a very short commercial. It's a minute long. I know some of you are in marketing and advertising, yes? This is a commercial from Guinness. It went viral. I'm not sure if you've seen this commercial. It's 1 minute, and it contains every one of these little secrets. These 7 principles are in this 1 minute. And you'll note, hang on. Do you see the views at the bottom there? 7 million views for a commercial. Why is there no sound? No, it's okay. Magic.
Dedication. Loyalty.
You're getting better at this, yeah. Next week, buddy.
Friendship. The choices we make reveal the true nature of our character.
Apart from anything else, that commercial makes me want to have a Guinness really bad. But what a great ad, right? It's like a magic trick. A little secret at the end. You think it's about one thing, the idea, you think it's probably about the dedication of wheelchair athletes, perseverance over struggle. It's really a story about the power of friendship. It's really something much larger, right? If I told you, the marketing and PR people in this room, if you went into your boss's office and you said, I can make a commercial, the 7 million people will voluntarily watch, not just watch it on TV, they will come to YouTube and click on it, your boss would say, that can't be done. But it can be done, and we have proof here. And sometimes when I talk about stories, I get really passionate about it, and I say, stories can change things, stories can save lives, stories can make people love things more. It can't be done. It can be done. It can be done. Never mind the 7 principles for a moment. We can make this even simpler. We can boil great magic, great storytelling down to one basic principle. Some people think tricks are just designed to fool people. That's what a trick is. It's to fool somebody. A great trick is more than that. Shadows is more than that. A trick is a lie. That's totally true. But a great trick is a beautiful lie. The best tricks stoke a battle between your brain and your heart. You're watching it. You know it's not magic. You know in your head that no one is a real magician. But you see something so beautiful that it moves you in your chest. The best magic tricks, there's a real collision between those two things, where what you see is impossible. You know it's impossible. But it's so beautiful, you want to believe it's true. And great magic, great storytelling, has that battle between your head and your heart, but you want your heart to win. That's when you have a really great story, is when someone reading it knows something intellectually, but the spiritual component of it, the emotional component of it, overpowers whatever they're thinking. That's what a great trick does. It makes you want for your heart to win. And the same is true of stories. When does a story matter? It matters when you make the reader feel something. Again, not just intellectually. They feel something spiritually, they feel something emotionally. You want them to read one of your stories and feel something in their chest. And sometimes it's hard to imagine we're capable of that. It can seem like a very hard trick to pull. This business, especially these days, is very hard, and it can make it seem like doing these beautiful stories are impossible. But there's magic, as cheesy as it sounds, there's magic all around us. Last year I thought this when I was standing up here, and you look at this room today. We take a lot of things for granted. I flew on a plane from Canada. I got here in like 10 hours. That's amazing. I mean, when you think about that, that's amazing. That day I went to see Stawa. We have a quaint expression in English, shit the bed. When I went to see Stawa, that day I'd woken up in my house in Port Hope, Ontario, and that night I was watching Stawa play Chelsea in Bucharest. That's crazy. The fact that we're all here today in this room, a little bit crazy. The other thing that still amazes me, because I'm an old man, is that we can instantly transmit information to each other. This is also crazy. When I came here last year, every time I brought up any kind of story, someone would say, "Oh yes, I've read that story." And they would recite various things back to me. And I was thrown every single time. I was like, "You're in Romania. Why are you reading these stories? How are you reading these stories?" This is amazing to me. We can tell stories now to readers around the world. And every one of us is capable of leaving this room tonight, going out into the last bit of the sunshine, and writing a story that someone somewhere, some stranger sitting in a room 10,000 miles away, will get to the end and laugh, or get angry, or even sob at the darkened theater like Teller's trick. We can all do that. I'm going to try this one more time. And that is magic.